Okay, welcome to the meeting of the Design Review Committee. If you kindly join me in the pledge to the flag. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we have a full complement of DRC members. The posting of the agenda has occurred 72 hours prior at the Public Library, the Recreation Department, and it's also on the city website. Before we begin, is anyone here to make a public comment on something that's not on the agenda? Just raise your hand. We're not seeing that. Let's just move on. For those of us here for the first time, we're going to proceed in the order that the item appears on the calendar. Simply, we ask staff for their summary. We then open it up with regard to questions of staff from the members of the Design Review Committee. After that, we ask the applicant or the applicant's representative if they wish to make a statement or a comment or maybe underscore some things or just simply be able to answer some questions. Please be advised we've been out to the site where the application is involved, and we've reviewed the application, so you don't have to repeat everything in there. After that, there may be some dialogue with regard to the applicant, where members of the committee would ask the applicant some questions. We would close the public aspect of the hearing after asking if there's anyone here wishing to speak for or against about the proposal, and then basically go over each member's point of view on it and take a vote. If the vote is to approve, there's a 15-day appeal period. If the vote is to deny, with regard to that, there is also an appeal period. The appeal goes to the Planning Commission and then to the City Council after that. If for any reason you want to change something once it's been approved, you'd have to come back here because the application becomes the law of the project. It cannot be varied whatsoever. So please keep that in mind. And with that, let's commence with the first item. Staff, do we have a report on that, please?
Thank you, Chair. The first item on the agenda is design review case number DRC 17-39, located at 860 Orlando Road. If the committee recall, it was back on February 6th meeting that the project was before you, and this is a continued items. The applicant has not submitted revised plans to staff in time, and because of the Permit Streamlining Act, the committee has to make a decision by March 23rd. For this reason, staff, without any additional material or new material, staff is asking the committee to deny the project tonight.
Okay.
Thank
Do
you.
we have the applicant's representative present on item number one? You're not seeing it. Let's close the public aspect of the hearing. Is there anyone interested in continuing it, or are we taking staff recommendation? Chris, your thought?
Yeah, without having any of the materials wise, I think we should take the staff recommendation.
Judy?
Agreed.
Kevin?
Agreed.
And Joyce?
I agree, especially since the applicant or representative is not present.
Okay, I concur with it as well. So do we have a motion then to deny?
Sure. I'll make a motion to deny DRC 17-39 located at 860 Orlando Road.
And do we have a second on that?
I'll second.
Okay, and all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we've gone through it, so I think there's a roll call. Let's just continue on. Item number 2.
Thank you, Chair. Item number 2 is design review case number DRC 18-91, located at 480 Winthrop Road. The applicant is requesting an after-the-fact approval for an unpermitted side yard fence, which extends into the front yard. Staff finds that although the contemporary style of the fence is compatible with the overall modern style of the existing residence, the fence is not consistent with the location, height, and style of side yard fencing found along the same side of Winthrop Road. Staff is unable to make all the findings for the proposal and recommends denial of application. However, if the committee finds that the project can be approved, staff recommends a condition of approval requiring a property survey before the issuance of a building permit to effectively demonstrate that the fence will provide the 18-inch required setback from the front property line.
Anyone have any questions of staff? Okay, not seeing any.
I actually do have one.
Okay, go ahead.
For the purpose of the survey, in order to look at the safety issue that you've brought up, cannot not be done visually because the setback from the street for safety, I'm assuming it's because you want to be able to see oncoming traffic, or what concerns do you have about safety that a survey would actually yield new information to make a decision?
It's not necessarily just a safety reason. The city code requires an 18-inch setback from the front property line, and that's impossible to discern just by looking at the property. There are a couple properties along Winthrop Road that have different locations of the front property line. And so for that reason, we require a property survey to correctly identify where that property line is.
Any other questions? Okay, is the applicant or applicant's representative present? Yes, if you'd like to come forward and just give your name and address, please.
Good evening, I'm Danielle Dabbs. I've been before this committee before. You know, I like to use pictures to tell the story. And this is Julio, who's my architect as well. So 480 Winthrop Road is the project in question. This is for the construction of a fence for the seeking after the fact approval. I just wanted to know, I've done a lot of history on this fence. This is a fence that was with the house when the house was constructed. I have the permit history of the house. It was erected in about 1960. There is a permit on file for the rear and side yard fence, and about several years later, they added another permit to increase more of the side yard fence, which, as Christine said, comes into the front yard. It is an existing structure. This is not anything I put up new. I replaced it in kind. I since understood that any repairs greater than 50% is considered a new item, which I was unaware of at the time. So this is what it looks like. This is the driveway, and this is what the fence was. This is 6 feet in height, and I essentially repaired it. So Christine also sent some staff report conditions, and I went through them. I read them very carefully. The first one, is it compatible with the existing residence, and you all answered yes. Your second comment was, is the fence consistent with other fences on the block between Molino and Los Robles? So all of you said no. I just want to point out that there are no two fences alike on this street. There are other wood fences. There's picket fences. There's vertical wood fences in varying heights of less than 4 feet, less than 6 feet. There's a brick fence that's greater than 6 feet, one that's greater or less than 2 feet. Here's one that's barely a foot tall. And then this is my neighbor whose curve, his fence is 6 feet, taller than 6 feet, excuse me. And then here's another fence that's less than 4 feet. It's metal and brick, and then here's my fence. So although it's not consistent with the neighborhood, I would just argue that the neighborhood in and of itself is not a consistent neighborhood. There's varying types of fences available. And the last report, the last staff condition was to create a hazard to pedestrians. Well, as you know, there's no sidewalk in front of my house. So as in the conventional sense, there's no hazard to pedestrians. And then if you wanted me to perform a survey to establish a property line, I could do that. So I'm asking to keep my fence with whatever code requirements are. If the height is, I was already told the height was too tall. I have taken down the height, and then we were kind of told after the fact that I had to actually get permission to even have the fence.
Mm-hmm.
So if you would consider allowing me to keep my fence, I would make it code compliant.
Okay, any questions of the applicant? All right, anyone here to speak for, against, or about the proposal? Okay, why don't you have a seat, ma'am,
Thank you.
and we'll just go through the process. Let's close the public aspect of the hearing. Begin with Judy. What's your thoughts on this one?
I would say that I agree with the staff finding that it's compatible with itself. if what we need to do to make sure that there's a compliance with city code is to issue a survey and the homeowner is agreeable to that, obviously we would recommend that. As it relates to not being compatible with the neighborhood, my feeling is this, and it's similar to what she said, and it was an opinion I was going to come in here with. The neighborhood is not consistent in any way, shape, or form. The neighbor next door has a chain link fence, which is an eyesore. And when a committee for the city approved the remodel of this house, they approved a modern home in a traditional neighborhood, and the homeowner has taken a disrepaired fence and put it in the theme of the home that was approved by a former DRC committee. So as long as it is compliant in the ways that we need to make it compliant, I am fine with it. Yes, it doesn't match anything else, but nor does the house that was approved. And it matches the house, and I think it's a better thing than taking it down, putting a brick wall up, putting another type of fence that doesn't match, or having the neighbor's chain link fence, which is a nice one.
Okay, thank you, Kevin.
Yes, I would agree with staff findings specific to the setback. I think the property, again, if we were to review this and it was before us, I think the fence is compatible with the home that it was renovated to currently. However, I think that we do need to determine where the property line is and that we maintain that minimum 18-inch setback. Otherwise, with that condition, I'd be able to approve what has been done.
Joyce?
I won't add anything to what was just said. I agree, let's get a survey, and I'm in favor of this, assuming that the survey, assures compliance.
Okay. Ben, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think the fence is compatible with the house, that's for sure. The neighbor's next door fence, the chain link fence, is basically a non-conforming fence. It's been there for years and years and years. So I don't think that fence is up to the setback it's supposed to be. That needs to be surveyed and take a look at. The only other thing I might think about this fence is that, I don't know, for building code purposes, that if it actually meets code for the neighbor's pool, it becomes a stepladder.
Interesting thought. Do we have any response from staff on that one?
No.
Okay.
We'll look into that.
I'm sorry, what was?
The issue is the effect on the pool.
On the neighbor's
I think,
property.
Ben, you were trying to say that it could provide certain fences are considered helpful to
Enclosure.
gain a foothold, and someone can more easily climb over, if I
Correct.
understood you correctly.
That is correct.
Well, let's move on to Chris. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. I think the fence is compatible with itself, and in lieu of the rest of the neighborhood being a little bit different, I'm okay with that. But I do think that we should do the survey, and I want to thank the applicant. I think both times she came, she really did her homework, and she definitely tried her best to do everything right. And I think if we're able to do the property survey, I'd be able to approve the project.
Yeah. Ben raises an interesting point, but I don't know if we're really in a position to do anything with regard to that. So my thought is, I'm basically concurring with everybody. The only thing on the survey, I've seen a lot of surveys come in, unless it's done by a licensed survey, state of California licensed surveyor, it really can be monkeyed around with, and I've got a concern about that. So I think the condition ought to be that the survey be conducted by a licensed, California licensed surveyor, and not someone just saying, hey, do surveying on the side. Do you agree with that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. Do we have a motion?
Sure, I'll motion to approve DRC 18-91 located at 480 Winthrop Road under the condition that the applicant get a property survey from a certified surveyor and make the fence code compliant.
Yeah, just for clarification, a California licensed surveyor.
A California licensed surveyor.
Thank you. Can we have a second? All right, all in favor? We'll do a roll call, please.
Committee Member Batnich.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
My plans are from a person who did my plans is Julio is a licensed surveyor.
I'm actually a civil engineer, and it's that my site survey was done for city records, and I am registered with the state of California as a civil, not a surveyor, I'm actually a civil, and all my plans have been stamped and signed.
Are you a licensed surveyor? Because some civil engineers, if you were prior to 1981, you would qualify as a licensed
Not
surveyor.
1981, so no, I got
Okay,
my.
then you need to sub
license.
out
Oh.
and get a licensed, California licensed surveyor.
So we require a surveyor for to.
Correct.
Understood. Okay.
All right? All right, then let's do the roll call.
Committee Member Batnich.
Yes.
Committee Member Huang.
Yes.
Committee Member Johnson Brody.
Yes.
Vice Chair Chang.
Yes.
Chair Brody.
Yes,
Motion carries.
okay, thank you. Okay, item number 3.
Thank you, Chair. Item number 3 is DRC, case number DRC 19-7, located at 2895 Wallingford Road. The applicant is seeking an after-the-fact approval for the installation of a double-door entry. Staff finds that the already installed double doors are too contemporary in style and is not compatible with the minimal traditional style of the existing house. And additionally, there is only one other property in the legal neighborhood with a double door entry, and that is not a good example of an appropriate application of double doors. Staff is unable to make findings at this time and cannot support the project.
Okay, any questions of staff? You're not seeing or hearing any? All right, is the applicant or applicant's representative present? Can you give your name and address, please?
Yes. Hi, excuse me. My name is Bonnie Wu, and I'm the owner of 2895 Wallingford Road. And Christine already stated the purpose of me being here. And initially, when we first supplied the blueprint for the original review to the DRC, we did not plan on getting the double doors. However, the original doors were damaged in the process of the remodeling, and a lot of things were going on at that time, and we thought maybe we could take this opportunity to get a double door that we thought would be a good idea for the house. And so there is one other property in the neighborhood 2 doors east of us that has double doors, and we thought maybe that could be that could blend with the neighborhood look as well. So it was an oversight on our part, not asking for the DRC to approve for this before putting it in, but at that time a lot was going on, and I thought maybe we could give it a try.
Okay, any questions of the applicant? Not seeing any hands raised on that. Why don't you have a seat, ma'am? I'll just ask the volunteer to speak about the project, for or against, about it. Okay, not seeing any hands raised on that. We'll close the public aspect of the hearing and begin with Kevin. What's your thoughts on it, Kevin?
As we all did, drove by, and I did probably 3 passes along the entire street, and it was hard pressed to find anything similar. I think it actually stated there was only one home on one of the neighbor comments that actually has a double door. I feel like had the process been presented before us, I would have not approved that double door installation, and I can't approve it now.
Thank you. Joyce?
Yes, knowing that this was approved not very long ago, that the DRC approved a plan for the entryway not very long ago, and knowing that this approval didn't include any kind of double doorway, and knowing that the residential guidelines don't encourage those, and that the new doors have a very contemporary style that is at odds with the kind of traditional or maybe ranch style of the home, the ranch styles, the ranch homes in the surrounding area, and not seeing any reasonable double doors in the neighborhood, I would not be in favor of approving this request.
Okay, and Ben, your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't think this door is compatible to the house or to the neighborhood. Doesn't follow the guidelines, so I couldn't approve it.
Thank you. Chris?
Yeah, when I was driving around the neighborhood, I didn't find very many houses with two front doors. Many of them had one side light or two side lights. And I think that would be more compatible. Perhaps if the applicant had brought this to our attention earlier, we may have been able to resolve it, but I wouldn't be able to approve it as current state.
Yeah, I concur with everything that's been said. I would not have approved this if it was on the plan in front of me, and I can't approve it this evening.
Yeah, and I'm of the same ilk as the thought processes that we've heard. So with that, do we have a motion?
Sure, I'll make a motion to deny DRC 19-7 located at 2895 Wallingford Road.
Yeah, and do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, let's take a roll call on that.
Committee Member Batnich,
Yes.
Committee Member Huang,
Yes.
Committee Member Johnson Brody,
Yes.
Vice Chair Chang,
Yes.
Chair Brody,
Yes.
motion carries.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's move on to the next one, over item number 4. And this is, we have staff report on that.
Thank you, Chair. Item number 4 is design review case number DRC 18-90, located at 3325 Monterey Road. The applicant is requesting to construct a 1- and 2-story addition and remodel project. The project proposes a new detached garage to replace the current carport. Exterior modifications are also proposed for the structure. Separate from the design review process, the applicant will be submitting a tree removal and pruning request to the city arborist based on the arborist report that was provided to the applicant, and it is of course subject to the city's arborist approval. To provide a little background on this home, because there may be some question in the audience about the original architect and the history of this structure. The structure was constructed in 1927, and it was designed by a gentleman named Frederick Huss. He is originally from Utah. Available online references material revealed that he started his career in Utah and eventually moved to California sometime in the early 20s. His name was listed in the architect's directory in the 1920s. However, staff was not able to find the exact time that he practiced architecture here his entire career. We were not able to locate his obituary, unfortunately. He was not associated with any particular architectural style or any notable projects in his career, based on our online search on articles or other records online. So going back to the design review finding, staff is able to make the finding that this home, the proposed project, is compatible with the neighborhood in terms of building height, massing, and scale in the manner that is similar to other homes on Monterey Road in that area. The building will retain its current modern art and craftsman / international style, which is the only structure in such style on the block. There is no privacy concern that staff can identify on the proposed project, although there are 2 balconies on the 2nd floor, but they are separated by adequate distance from the west neighbor. The addition maintained the asymmetrical facade and the varying roof line, which makes it consistent with the style itself and the current structure. The addition will provide some skylights on the 1st floor, and which is not uncharacteristic with modern style structures. The proposal also includes new exterior colors that are not overpowering and provide the appropriate contrast for this style. The project will also reactivate the front fountain, and that includes the staff's report tonight.
Okay, any questions for staff? I'm not seeing or hearing any. Is the applicant or applicant's representative present? Thank you. Just give your name and address. And
Yes.
You'd just like that we make a quick presentation and be
Yes.
able to answer questions, whatever is your choice.
Okay. Yeah, let me set up my PowerPoint.
Sure, great.
While
you're setting that, can you have any materials for it because the colors were not identified on the photocopy provided to us?
Alex, maybe try pulling the plug out and
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. My name is Alex Chen, the design architect for this issue. As you all know, this unique property is well known in the city of San Marino. The uniqueness is that the architectural style is totally different from its surrounding homes. The house is two-story and the style is modern, art, and craft. It has many intricate features and details, such as, you can go to the next slide. It would be the four characters that we think that it's a very unique detail on the structure. Number one is the mosaic tile patterns on the walls. And this is a different size of the mosaic tile combined to this shape and the size. And we thought that's a very interesting detail to look at. And the second one on the top will be the wrought iron railing. This railing is really unique because we don't see anywhere else in the city. And the most railing that we see is more vertical, a very Spanish, very simple look. And the other features, which is below that balcony, that is the horizontal canopies, which is right over here, horizontal canopies. And lastly will be the ceramic glaze block and etc. And we plan to keep them all and preserve them as much as we can. And our approach to the design and renovation is very simple. In respect to its history, we are keeping the existing features and all additions pretty much follow the current lines, shapes, and architecture. In this diagram, the red color shows where the existing building is. The blue will be the livable area in the garage that is going to be added on to the project. The green line will be the outdoor trellises, which is open to sky to create shade and shadow effect. They shall all complement the structure. However, the site of this project presents challenges. Existing oak tree hindered the expansion of the existing home. Instead of the relocated trees altogether, we incorporate the tree as part of the design. As a result, we brought the outdoor into the interior spaces. And we utilize natural lighting and cross ventilation to enhance the green feature of the project. So look at this diagram. Currently, there's an oak tree already existed here. So if we were to add it on directly to the building, that means the oak tree has to go. So after studying the arborist report, we give it substantial setbacks to the diameter of the tree trunk. So, which is what you see in this diagram, this PowerPoint. Okay, right here. This diagram, this diameter is approximately 10 feet. That was given by the arborist. So besides that is what we can add on away from the tree trunk in that diagram. So that was a difficult challenge, and we are able to resolve that issue and still have a very interesting design by bringing the outdoor to the indoor. Now, if this will give you a better idea of a three-dimensional of the space, this green stick is representing where the tree location is. So you will see a better volume of this isometric drawings. Go to the elevation. So this is the front facade of the existing elevation. So pretty much the front of the building, we kept exactly the same, except we'll renovate, replace all the windows and doors to a more durable door and windows, which will be aluminum clad. And keeping that oak tree really softened the scale and really softened the overall massing of the existing structure. Okay. So I think the overall that we are adding on to the second story, it's approximately 2 feet 6 inches. That is higher than the existing structure. And most of it is way in the back. You will not be able to see it. I think if you look at the story pole, you will not tell there's a second story being added on to the project. Let's take a look at the elevation below, which is the east elevation. This is the driveway side elevation. This mosaic wall tile we talked about earlier that we are going to keep the way it is and clean it up and keep that feature. Existing, there's a wood trellis right at this location. So we will design this so that it matches the design of this particular style and still have that trellis effect by adding a facade walls, more mass in the front, and somewhat more transparent. So when you have an outdoor dining there, you will be enjoying the space even more. The roof canopy currently ends right here. So since we add on towards the back, we want to continue that roof canopy. So as you can see, this is one continuous roof line that carries through from wall to wall space. And also the window treatment. On the addition of the garage area, we sort of follow the rhythm of the existing window on the second floor. So as you can see, the more windows being added on. So the entire elevation will sort of flow through all four sides. Next elevation. Next page. Okay. Okay, on this elevation, which is the west side, is a heavy vegetation, tall trees and so forth. You will not be able to see it, but we're looking at the drawing is taken from the walkway. This is the front portion of the structure, and this is the add-on portion of the structure. During the story pole installation, one of the pole hit, when it's complete, one of the pole hit one of the trunk on the top of the, this line will hit this trunk here. So we had to redesign by shifting the master bathroom towards the north side, which is the back side, approximately 3 feet inches, to avoid that trunk is being disturbed. And this red line represents the building line, exterior wall of the building line. And the bottom portion is still keep the way it is, just the second floor being shifted out towards the rear of the property. Simply, we wanted to keep that tree, to preserve that tree. Lastly, on this elevation, that we want to replicate that mosaic tile detail that we saw on the driveway, which is pretty much the similar detail, size, colors, and to match the one that we saw earlier in the front on the driveway elevation. The last elevation we're going to look at is this one facing the Lacey Park. One of the features that we're adding here is also a modern trellises that will help the flow of the circulation pattern to the rear yard and also to the pool area here. I think in summary, this legacy of this 1930s gym is continued. The rear facade mirrors the uniqueness of the front facade, wall and window treatments, and everything ties together as one. We wanted to design it so that all the detail, the addition and the existing all ties, and it looks like it was being built at the same time. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone have any questions of this gentleman?
I have one.
Sure, go ahead.
On page L1, under the hardscape legend, you refer to several items that say to be selected by owner. Normally, we don't approve anything that has not been shown as an architectural or design feature. So part of it's the different styles you wish to do, concrete or paving or colors. And the other one would be, you mentioned at the top of the presentation, or perhaps it was staff, there would be a new wall fountain. Could you please elaborate on that? Because it doesn't seem to be something that was shown, but we know that you're going to be replacing it, and we'd like to know what that would look like.
As far as the paving on the ground, this will be in the front, in front of the gate. There will be just a concrete with the score lines.
No color?
No color.
Okay.
Yeah, we try to be very simple to color, sort of a gray color to match the building color. After the gate is open, this large hard surface area will be integrated with artificial grass. So you will really soften the space. Rather than reading as a very large piece of the concrete throughout, there's a integrated pattern with a grass. I think that would, many projects that we have designed turn out very nicely with that integration. As far as the fountain, as the report mentioned, that we're gonna repair whatever it takes to preserve this fountain in the front. And the fountain here will be inside of the entrance courtyard. So it will be just a wall fountain that water should flow inside to the...
But the one visible from the street will just be replacing the bubbler, or will it be actually something that will be ornate, the one that's visible from the street?
It will be leave just the way it is.
It is,
Yeah.
just repair.
Yeah, repair, yeah, to make it look like new.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions?
I have some small questions and maybe some bigger questions. A small question is, I may have missed it because your plans are very extensive, which I appreciate. Were there existing elevations of the guest house in the plans?
Yes. Is there an existing floor plan of the guest house? Sorry, no. No, because we don't plan to keep them.
I know, but you don't plan to keep the carport or a lot of those others, but you included those, and I was just wondering if...
Yeah, we don't have, all we have is more picture to show you. It's basically, let me see, go to, yeah. Let me find a picture to show you. It basically is just a lot of glass with a one large open area in between the trees of that pine tree in the back. And since we thought we were going to demolish it and to clear out the space.
Okay, so there's no existing elevation plans of the guest house. Okay, again, I may have missed this, but I think I saw an indication that the gates will be remain the same, or rebuilt, or repaired, or what's the
Compared
plan?
to leave it the way it is.
Leave it the way it is, because
Yeah.
they're kind of
Yeah, it will be repaired.
falling apart a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, this is the existing guest house that's going to be demolished.
Yeah, I
If you-
saw that.
Yeah, if you had a chance to go into the back, it's really,
Yeah.
like that.
Is there anything in here, I didn't, again, it may be there, I just didn't see it. Is there anything indicating where the retaining walls removal is indicated? And if so, what are you going to do with all of that dirt, and how are you going to reconcile that?
The wall removal and the soil, balance will be all on site. It's very minimum. Since we're not building a basement, there's no export dirt. The only place that we're changing the level is where in the oak tree courtyard
Yes,
area.
that's what I'm referring to in the back.
Yeah,
Yeah,
on the west side. Yeah.
right. Okay, so the plan is for those retaining walls to be removed from the back.
Yeah.
And what are you going to do with all of that?
It will be just a hardscape surface from the landscape plan showing the cobblestone around the tree areas. If you can turn to the landscape plan.
Okay, so you'll just remove the walls and remove all the dirt that's surrounding,
Yeah.
that it's retaining, so to speak.
Yeah.
Okay. And there's something in the landscape plan, believe that you're removing roughly 10 out of the 20 trees on the site. And one of the things I think that makes this property special is, of course, the architecture, and the other thing that makes it special is the number and variety of trees. So I was really paying attention to that quite a bit on this particular project, as did you in your presentation, which I appreciate. One of the trees, so there's two trees that kind of, I never know how to say this, deodars, that kind of frame the backyard very nicely. One of them is pretty clearly dead, but the other one looks pretty clearly alive. And in the landscape plan, it's listed as literally quote unquote dead. So that they're both quote unquote dead. Can you clarify that? Because they're pretty big, that's a big heritage tree.
Yeah. Our landscape architect is also here to answer the question.
Okay, to answer that question, the one trees to the left.
Can you please come forward?
Come up, please, and just introduce yourself,
Okay.
so we're not just detecting a voice from the
Hi,
background.
I'm Jenny, and I'm the landscape architect for this project.
What's your full name, please, and your
This is
business address?
Jenny. Yeah, I'm Jenny.
Jenny what?
Y-E.
Okay,
I'm a landscape architect.
okay, where's your office located?
It's in Eastwell,
What?
in Chino.
And the address?
It's 14315 Harvest Valley, Eastwell, CA 92880. It's kind of close to the Chino area.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
Okay,
Continue.
to answer the three questions, the one to the left side, that one is actually dying, so it's only branches and like brownish branches. So that one is actually dying. So it's dead tree. And
They're both dead.
no, the one to the right is still showing a little bit of green. I think it's kind of in the middle because for that kind of tree, and also it's from my surveyors, the arborist report. Actually, the arborist report is saying it's the dead tree, but
The arborist report what? I'm sorry, can you just speak a little slower?
Okay. In the arborist report, it shows both trees are dead.
It does.
Yeah.
Both duodors are dead.
But my
Because it
understanding.
doesn't look dead. I'm not an arborist, I'll admit that.
Yeah,
But-
but the tree in that side, I did question that, and the tree on the right side looks it still had a little bit of greenish when I went there last December, November, but all confirmed with my arborist, the arborist, to make sure that tree is still like, it's still alive or it's still in the, like, because the winter time it's deciduous and it looks like it's dead.
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll confirm that. Thank you.
Any other questions, sir?
Yeah, so when I look at the plans, it already doesn't look like the big oak tree that I realize that you have designed around to a certain extent. It looks like there's some space, but it also looks like the space would just be paved over, that its roots would essentially be paved over. And it doesn't seem like that would give that tree any chance of life. Again, I'm not an arborist. However, the other thing is that when I went to the site, the story poles appear to be much closer than the plans make them look. And I don't know if that's just, I don't know why that is, but that's the perception. When you're on site, it looks like, you're right next to the tree. So I'm concerned about that, and I realize that there was a lot of sensitivity put into this design, but I just want to ask you a little bit about that since you're here.
Okay, the oak trees, that there's certain criteria requirements around, like you have 5 feet radius, which is like you just keep it open, or just you have bark mulch.
5 feet radius around the roots of the oak?
That's the first ring. So first ring is 5 feet, and then we have 10 feet, and then we have 15 feet. So in our drawing, if you look at the drawings, that the hatched area, which is the a little bit dark color, that's the rock mulch. So it's pervious and there's no compaction in that area. It's very nice. I think it's 2 to 3 inches. The beige colors pebbles. So it's like very small greens that to cover the 3-inch of the root area, which is the very critical protection walls for the oak tree. And then outside the anything outside there, I'm using the cobblestones, which only is 4 to 4-inch square little cobblestones, and it's pervious. So that will help to to the root area also. And you can see actually there's a lot of oak trees, like because they are kind of in the grass area. It's overwatering, but in this case you're not in the turf area, so this should be okay. If we're doing when we're doing the construction, we have protection fence and make sure that the compaction is not in the root area. So this will be, yeah.
Okay,
I think that's it for me.
all right, how about you, Kevin? You seem to be...
I have a question specific to the call out on your site plan for the number 6 for the pool equipment. Does the pool equipment have to be placed behind the garage? Can it be rerouted to a little different location? And the reason I bring it up is the proximity to this property to Lacey Park is right in the backyard, or your backyard is right in Lacey Park's backyard, whichever way you want to look at it. And there is a pathway, a jogging pathway that runs right by that, basically from the property. So what I'm understand of pool equipment is it's pretty noisy, and so my concern would be the transfer of noise from the pool equipment to the park where you're currently siting.
Should I ask a question or should I?
It's either an architectural question or a landscaping question, so whoever can answer it.
Yeah, it seems this location is logical, okay? Even though, give you an example, if we will move the equipment to here, it's still approximately 10 feet away from the fence, 15 feet away from the fence.
Mm-hmm.
Noise is not going to go away. And that noise is not constantly on, only at a certain time of the day that will generate the
Right, so
system.
I'm not concerned about the park in the evenings. I'm more concerned during the hours when you would presumably have the motor running on the pool or on the spa. So my question is there another more suitable location for the pool equipment closer, away from the border from Lacey Park and the property.
Do you have any suggestion?
I think, well, we,
Sorry to catch you off guard, but it's just, I think it's a real concern.
I mean, that's a good question. When I placed the pool equipment there, it's, I mean, because the back is Lacey Park, and then we have almost like 6 feet, 8 feet, 6 feet block wall there. So it's a good location that not have a real attraction to the residents, and also, you know, not to the neighbor, just be kind of far away from the neighbor, which is right behind the garage. And you know, we do have a kind of like a door to, and also the walls to the other side. So basically, the noise is going to be catched inside the pool equipment enclosure, and we have so many trees, and then it's like a big park setback area to the public sidewalk in the park. So for the design point of view, I think that is the best location to this project, and you know, to the neighbors, and stay away from the public walk and stuff. Yeah.
I have another question. As you know, a lot of the tile work and decorative elements on the facade have either been removed, stolen probably, painted over. You did mention that you would work to restore the decorative elements, and I wanted to ask how, you know, that could mean many different things. What's the plan for that?
See, this is the color remained pretty much the same after 60, 70 years. This is a perfect one. But there's other areas on the side of the living room at the entrance, like as you mentioned, it's been painted over. Okay, so since we're redoing the finished coat of the stucco, we're gonna change that color to gray. At the same time, we'll see if we can remove the paint on the existing tile, see how the condition work, whether it's worthwhile to saving them as much as we can. But if the tile condition is already cracked or missing pieces, that will be very difficult to find another piece just to put it in, and the color will not look right. So we will probably just eliminate it once we find out if we cannot save them. When we re-stucco over, we'll just cover it up with the stucco. But this one here, definitely we're gonna keep that. And we're repeating this feature on the other side of the addition.
So the plan is to keep the one that's intact?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? All right, I'm not hearing or seeing any. Is there anyone here who wishes to speak for or against about the proposal? I see a couple of hands raised. Why don't you have a seat, and we'll take some comments from the audience here. Yes.
Hi, John Dustin, 2815 Davenport. I don't have any necessary criticisms about this project in and of itself. I really appreciate the applicant's attention to preserving the architectural patrimony of this house, which I think is part of the architectural patrimony of the city. I just wanted to make a comment that in addition to preserving architectural patrimony, I would make a comment that we need to preserve the arboreal patrimony of the city as well. This location is a pretty good example of something that I have a problem with, where properties sit vacant for many years and the water is shut off, and we see tremendous damage to the trees on the site. And then, it's difficult. I don't know that the current applicant has been in possession of the property all the time that it's been abandoned. I doubt that they have been. But it's disturbing to me that we see large mature trees just waste away because they've been neglected. And then someone comes in, builds a new house, and there isn't the effort to sort of replace trees simply because they're dead. I just think that that's an oversight on our part as a city, so I just wanted to bring that to people's attention.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else wish to speak for or against the about the proposal? Yes, sir. Just please state your name and address.
Dale Pedersen, 2140 Lorraine Road. I walk that loop several times a week immediately behind that property in Lacey Park, and I'll tell you, it's been a mess. It's been a real mess for many years. So I appreciate the question that was raised about some additional noise from the pool equipment and whatever else might be going on back there, as it may bother the people in Lacey Park because it's so quiet and serene right now. So it'd be, I just wish that you would take that into real consideration when you make the decision. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else wish to speak for or against about the proposal?
After you. Good evening, Joel. I'm Hassan Ali. We live on the immediate west of this property,
Could you give me your name and address,
305
please?
Broadway Road.
Could you give me your name and address, sir, for the record, please?
HASSMOHAGHEGH.
And the address, sir?
We have lived there forever, since '75. And one thing that I want to remind, I don't know if you all know, that there is a 10-foot easement from our property to this property. And nothing is supposed to be built on that. And I see some of the extension, maybe the pool, is going to violate that easement. I just want to make sure that that's not happening.
What kind of an easement is it?
I'm a doctor. I know that it's part of the original when they wanted to build a house. Our property original property was apparently much larger, over an acre, and they asked for a 10-foot easement. It's gone through the city. The city has provided the paperwork and the documentation for that.
Maybe we can ask staff to comment on that?
So this would go back to 1926, 27.
So you live on...
Immediate west of this property.
Okay, and you're telling us that there's an easement that benefits your property?
No, benefits their property.
Benefits their property?
Yes.
And how does that affect you then?
No. Our property, the property where our building is, was too large. They needed some land. They went through this, getting this 10-foot easement with the understanding that it will never be used for construction.
I see. That's the condition on the easement. And there's construction that you believe is taking place on the...
I'm just wondering, like the pool, when I talked to you, I thought the pool was going to be like a little pond in the outside area, but it looks like it's immediately next to our property line, and it may very well violate the easement. That's one point. Again, I can't provide you with that, but that should be a document that is easily available in the city.
Well, let me tell you, 1926 easements are very tough to look
Sir,
at. No, I'm not saying...
You're here to protect that thing, whether you can find it in your books or not.
But it's nothing that we could come up with off the top of our head right
So
now.
Chair, let's see if staff has comments regarding this
Yeah.
particular.
Do you have any knowledge of any easement impingement of any kind?
It was not indicated on the property survey, and it is part of the surveyor's responsibility to find the history of the property in
Right.
terms of when they conduct the survey research.
Yeah, except, let me just tell you from my own experience, there's something called backplant searches that are not generally done, that usually are before 1940, and they go back, and I'm dealing with one on a case going back to 1906. So when you get into the 1920s, they're not always picked up on an initial survey. And it takes an additional, what they call a backplant survey, to kind of figure out what existed way back when. And so it may not be available to you. It takes a different type of survey.
May I ask a question? Do you remember what year this house was built?
It was 27.
27.
So it would be 26, 27 when the easement was granted because they needed it to build.
Well, that's a very interesting point you raise, I appreciate that.
I would just like to ask how you're aware of the easement.
I'm sorry?
How are you aware of the easement? Was it verbally
Oh,
told
it's
to you,
in our-
or is it in
yeah,
your records, or in your
Yes,
contracts?
Yes, yes.
It is in your contract? Or your
Yes.
title documents, perhaps?
I believe it is. I have read it.
Yeah.
Now, like
If
everything
so,
I
you
read
may want to
yesterday, I
provide
don't
it
know
to
what
the
they are.
city.
But yes, in one of our documents, it does indicate that. Yes. And I have a feeling you're not going to violate that 10-foot easement anyhow, right? Or
Well, we're surmising, without having that 10-foot easement specifically surveyed with regard to this plan, it's just a guesstimate as to whether it does or not.
As a matter of fact, if you look in front of the
Yeah,
building,
nothing is right.
if you look from the Monterey Road view between our property and their property, right at Monterey Road, there is a piece of property that is easily 10 foot and has concrete walls on both sides, and it goes right down there, by their walkway. And that is part of that whole piece.
I noticed that while walking the property.
I think this other part, after looking at your presentation at home and here, I have no objections, speaking for my whole family, to the building the way it's presented. The oak trees were brought up. One of them, I know for sure, more of the oak tree is in our backyard than in theirs. And we have, in the past, when the whiteheads were still alive, addressed that. Part of the oak tree had to be trimmed. Some of that may have to be done in the future, but we can address that. That's all.
Okay, thank you very much. Anyone here wish to speak for or against about the proposal? Okay, now seeing or hearing, anyone will close the public aspect of the hearing. And we start with Joyce.
You're going to regret that, because I'm going to be speaking for a while. But, so, as was discussed, this is a very unique home in San Marino, and as many of us know also, this house is nicknamed around town as the Frank Lloyd Wright House. And not because it was designed by Frank Lloyd Wright, but because of its loose resemblance to some of what has come to be known as Wrightian architecture. And it also resembles a lot of Frank Lloyd Wright's son's architecture. It's an example of early modern and an adaptation of the Frank Lloyd Wright Mayan period work, and borrows from the Hollyhock House, the Samuel Navarro residence, the Ennis home. Those are the ones that come to mind. So as a house, designed in 1926 and built in 1927. This was extremely forward-thinking for its time. When you bring this home up to people in town, they tend to sort of smile and say, I've always loved that house. And it seems to be perceived as unique and appealing to people in a way that most houses aren't, and certainly not a modern home in the city. In fact, the house is pictured in the residential design guidelines, as you've probably all seen, because we've all read them. And as an example of excellent architecture in the city, and for its facade treatment, and for how good its facade treatment is. As I mentioned earlier, the two things about this property that stand out to me are, one, the unique and distinct architecture, and two, the great number of and diversity of trees that sort of soften it and frame it, and around which the house inhabits. I can imagine that as an architect, you must have felt very honored to be entrusted to the challenge of adding on to this building. And I would like to say that in many, many ways, I feel that your design really honors and respects the original home design. And at the same time, makes the space much, much more livable. I happened to speak to someone who had been there often as a child, because I guess family friends of the residents, and said, it was a pretty terrible space to live in, but a beautiful space to look at from outside. And I think that your design really adds to that livability. So a big part of why I think your design does respect the original home is that to its merit, it leaves the entire facade intact. I can imagine that having committed to retaining the facade, that must have made the rest of the project significantly easier to simply, follow that. So, in speaking of the facade, that might be a good place to start with some more specific comments. I've seen this building most of my life, as it's a street that I've driven nearly every day. And I've always noticed how when you drive by in both directions, what is a very plain structure with very, just block architecture really, the visual interest is added by this little decor elements, such as you mentioned. You mentioned the balcony, the wrought iron, the green, I don't know what you call them, ceramic glazed blocks. I think Wright called them textile blocks because they added texture. And those decorative elements are really what make this home's architecture, gives it the visual interest as you're driving by or walking by on either direction. As I mentioned before, a lot of those visual decorative elements have been removed. And so the fact that you would be leaving one of them intact and removing the rest, I think is something that you could work on as part of your design. So those small details of visual interest really dress up the minimalist and very basic rectangular shapes that really lack any other ornamentation. I've noticed that I think any one element of any redesign would restore those areas to the facade and bring some of those elements to the addition of the home as well, because the home has to be compatible with itself, so those decorative elements would be brought back into the addition, I would think. I would like to add that, to point out that there were already add-ons to the house in the past. This house has already been added onto, and those add-ons that were made did incorporate those decorative elements. They did incorporate those green ceramic glaze blocks, or whatever you call them. And we can tell that because there is a just slightly different design to the ones that were added on to the back compared to the ones in the front, so you can tell that they were added on later and mimicked as part of their addition. So I would like to see any redesign do the same, or redesign, not redesign, but I would like the additions to do the same. So given all of this, I would like to suggest that we condition the ultimate project approval on a historical assessment that would make recommendations to these details, because I think we're sort of out of our league to some extent on a house like this. And they might make recommendations about the missing and painted over and removed tile work and the wrought iron balcony details to be preserved and possibly to be repeated in the back balcony if the final design includes one, and the green tile or textile block motif. The fountain in the front would be another thing to include in this assessment, and I'm pretty sure those two cement little cornucopia details statues would be removed, but that would be, I think, also part of the assessment. As far as the findings that we have to make, I think the first one, compatibility, is the trickiest, with the issue of massing being probably the most difficult. I think you made a great decision to isolate your addition in terms of most of the square footage, mostly to the back. And visually, much of the addition to the property is modest and hidden from street view, and yet it will significantly improve the livability, as I said, and still maintain the asymmetrical shapes of the original design. I think this is especially true of the additions to the west of the property, which although they're adding some mass, they don't disrupt the basic form of the house and keep the symmetry from the street level at least. In terms of the north part of the addition, going in the back of the home, of course adding the back makes sense here simply because there's a lot of available lot. But there's just too much massing in the southwest side, no matter how you look at it. Even though it's in the back, which is helpful and kind of the recess helps a little bit, it still alters the silhouette in a very, very big way. It is visible from the front, I disagree with you, and if anything happens to that oak tree, it would be way more than visible. The only reason why it's softened a little bit is because of that oak tree, and I'll get to that later.
What could we move it along?
Move it along. I am moving along. So that addition is just far too high and just juts out too much. The most difficult part of the massing in that area is that I don't believe that it could be built without killing the gigantic oak tree there. And those two oak trees, along with the others, as I said, really soften the look. That California live oak is going to die the way it's designed. It's not going to remain. You're way too close to the tree line there, and there's no way to keep that tree healthy. In terms of massing, I think the large number of outdoor spaces really add to the overall massing. There's terraces, there's covered porches, there's trellises. You've got a lot of that going on. And I think that really ends up contributing a lot to the overall massing as well. You've got a 3-car garage design, which is desirable, of course, for this home, and it seems well placed, but then it's right next to a 2-car garage, and that, I don't know how you would get cars in there. It would be very awkward. It would be a very awkward space to get cars into. I don't know if that's counted in the overall square footage, which is a little perplexing, because I think if you have an area that has a washer and dryer in it and it's attached to the house, I think we can't just call it a garage and not count it in the square footage. I think you may have to make some decisions on that one, but in any case, whatever you call it and whatever its intended use is, I think that does contribute towards the overall massiveness, and so does all that covered patio space. Overall, in terms of massing, the things that I would want to be able to see to approve the project would be that the back part of the addition not be taller than the original height of the structure, that the overall massing be shifted and almost certainly reduced, although in some way, and that the oak in the back is not just built around by a few feet, but designed in a way that ensures its long-term health during construction and after construction. So I think that some significant work on the massing, which is in order while ensuring full protection of the oaks and many of the other trees on the property. I think this is a great start, and I'm very optimistic that this will ultimately be a very nice addition to a very special and unique San Marino home. Thank you for indulging me.
Thank you. Chris?
Thank you. So I think this is a pretty complicated project, but I do think that the home is compatible with itself. It's a little bit of a different style home, but I guess I do have some suggestions / concern. I guess regarding the pool equipment, I think perhaps there's a way to build like a little sound barrier, maybe with a 1x wall and some sound foam inside, and then another 1x piece of wood on the outside. And I've seen that done before for HVAC machines, and it really helped quiet it down. I think that might work next to the pool equipment. I think in terms of the tree, it does look a little bit risky, but as long as an arborist has okayed it, obviously the applicant will be taking on the risk if something should happen to the oak tree. And I think that overall, although there is a considerable amount of square footage being added in massing, it's not that noticeable from the street, and I think it includes and incorporates the style of the home nicely. And as long as we can verify certain items such as the easement, I think I'd be able to approve the project in its current state.
Thank you. Judy?
Yes, thank you. Well, you know, I think this is one of the homes that is very well known in our city, and I'm going to start off by saying I'm pleased that this owner found you as the architect, and you as the architect found this home, because I can only imagine what some people could have designed and put in front of us today. What I will say is I think that your integration of the design and the elements and continuing in some of those areas that are new is very tastefully done. I think when the home is finished, it'll be hard to distinguish what was original, what was done in the middle, probably in the 60s, and what you will be doing, which I think is the goal. I would say, I think by removing some of the exterior structures, you clean up the space, and I think there's a number of issues with the home that you resolve through the design that you put together. In terms of the items we've discussed this evening, I don't know if there is an easement. You know, I know that a title report that a homeowner here says that he has says there is one. So I would think that that would be a question that the city should look into. We don't have that information in front of us this evening, but if there is one, then you should make sure that the homeowner is adhering to it, because that would be a major problem for all of you if there was one and you did not. The home is in the Library Estates District. What that means is the lots are a little larger, the homes are a little larger, and I know that the city in general, some people who sit here and some people who sit out there have concerns over size of square footage. The reality is this home, in the way you have designed it, I think the mass is appropriate for the original style and the way you've added onto it and the visual aspect from the street, and I have no problem whatsoever with the way you've made the additions, both from structures as well as the actual home itself. And the garage is a requirement because there's 5 bedrooms. The only small little thing I would say is that some of the lighting on the west elevation seems odd. You have a light fixture which may have just been from the drawing that's floating in the middle of an area by a door, as opposed to at a height that would normally be where it would be on a door. And on the north elevation, you have numerous wall sconces on the wall facing the neighbor, but you don't have them on each side of the double door down a set of steps. So one of the things I would just want to make sure is that you work with the staff to make sure that any egress or entrance to the house is appropriately lighted, as opposed to just blanketing the wall. And so those 2 areas I'm discussing are the west and the north elevations. And the only other thing I was going to add is I did note, and I think we have seen in the design guidelines and just from living in this city that we love, the architectural features that are on the house. And I would just want to make sure that any of those items that truly could be salvaged are not covered over or thrown away. And even if they cannot be fully salvaged, there's enough fine architecture in this city and certainly in Pasadena where the homeowners have lovingly found somebody to make it look like it's original. Meaning that if some of the ceramic tiles are broken, you can find an artisan who can continue that on as opposed to stripping it out, and the same thing would be for the ironwork. Because I think those are the things that make this home filled with character. And when you look at the color going from pink to gray or just natural concrete, the property is going to look very modern and look very different than it is today. And I think if we take some of those architectural features off, the home will be surprisingly stark for the neighborhood. Thank you. I think you've done a great job and I love it.
Thank you. Kevin?
Yes, thank the applicant. I think you did a decent job of trying to incorporate landscaping that does exist and being sensitive to that. The home is a unique piece of property as far as architecture is concerned. You know, everyone's been trying to pinpoint what the style is. I know we've heard international style, you know, Aztec Mayan style, hints of Frank Lloyd Wright's style, as well as I also caught, you know, flares of Art Deco style within the home. Specific to the addition in the rear, I feel like it is a bit massive. I feel like it is set back far enough. You are placing it behind the existing oak tree. However, I feel like it could, I think you have 10-foot plate heights on both floors. I feel like if you can lower it and not exceed or not exceed what the current height of the building is, or at least minimize it more, I think that would be helpful to maintaining the character of the home. Specific to this home, you know, the defining piece of the home is really the front facade, and I think you've done you've tried hard to maintain that. I would also echo the comments from the fellow committee members about maintaining, decorative elements and not just plastering over it or stuccoing over it. And also specific to the color choices and palettes, I agree wholeheartedly with Member Johnson Brody that once it becomes a gray and white, it's going to become a very ultra modern type of look. And so you have to be sensitive to how that will change the overall look and feel of the home as it exists today. With the architecture you do find in the house, I feel like at the rear of the home where there is wood siding, wood paneled siding, I'm not sure if that was an addition, but it appears to be not coherent and cohesive with what the architectural elements of the front facade are. And so, I would ask that you look to see if there was an addition done, and if so, it wasn't done well. I think what you've been given here is an opportunity to actually improve on the home that you're renovating architecturally, with the comments you've heard here today, as opposed to kind of repeating them. So I personally don't think the wood siding element around the perimeter of the home adds to it. I think it actually detracts from it, and it appears to be something that was an afterthought, not something that was original intent. So I would ask that you look into that. Again, I think my biggest concern that I raised earlier and now is where the pool equipment is being sited. I understand that Committee Member Hong has given suggestions of how to maybe isolate that, but I think isolating it is not sufficient. I think it has to be relocated and placed further away from the property line and away from the park in order to mitigate and reduce sound transfer. We all enjoy Lacey Park, and if in that particular area, if someone were to be there in a meditative state to hear a pool motor pop on or a spa jet motor pop on, I think that'd be very disruptive to the overall community. So with those comments, I think there can be some changes, and I'd be willing to review again.
Okay, thank you. Ben?
Yeah, this house is quite unique to the San Marino community. The original house, though, if you look at it from the street, has many stair steps. It goes from a one-story up to a two-story, plus the entry is a different height. So the house is pretty much stair-stepped. With the addition being so far in the back, I think this just adds one more element that actually is compatible to the house. Some of the elements that we've already discussed, I think, could be taken a look at, especially the wood siding, as mentioned. But otherwise, I think the addition is very well done. As far as the oak tree is concerned, I think you have to go by what the arborist says. But right now, there's concrete right up to the trunk, and that concrete is being removed. So the trunk itself has grown over the concrete. It's kind of molded over the concrete. So what he's proposing is actually helping the tree, not hindering the tree.
What do you think of the landscape plan?
Yeah.
I mean, are you happy with the landscape plan?
Yeah, I think it's pretty good.
All right, I'm sorry for interrupting. Go ahead.
As far as the pool equipment is concerned, I think it's probably not going to even be acceptable in where the location is. I think it's 3 feet from the property line, 5 feet from the property line in the rear. So that puts it right up against the garage, and you need the pumps and heaters. So that's going to have to be relocated anyway. So anywhere behind the garage, you won't be able to be acceptable. As far as the pool is concerned, I only have one suggestion for the architect to make sure, from past experience, Mark, Mark the inspector in the city, from the power lines, there's a 25-foot height difference from the level of the pool to the power lines, and you have to be 10 feet away from it. So that location of the pool might have to be changed. And that's also including in the easement, as far as that's concerned. But I think overall, I would approve the project if I was to vote.
Okay, thank you very much. And my thought is a little different in some respects, and it's very similar. Let me succinctly state that I think that the architect did a superb job in keeping the design that has been brought to us consistent with what is already there. I think the basics are wonderfully done, and the architect is to be commended for that. There are a couple of things that came out in the conversation that is just frankly disturbing to me. If there is missing tile, I don't see stuccoing over at all. That destroys the whole concept. In addition, if the ironwork is missing some items or is in need of repair, it should be repaired. And the tile should be replicated. There are people, there are artisans out there who do that kind of work. I think if we're attempting to maintain the design, we've got to maintain something similar. It may not be the exact same concept, but if it was very close in replicating the tiles, that would be acceptable. I frankly wasn't pleased coming in here with the landscape plan. There are just too many trees missing that could be brought into, as you had indicated, the goal is to bring the outside in. It could have added to that, but apparently I'm the only one who really has a concern on that. I think the pool...
I share your concern there.
Thank you. I think the pool equipment has to be relocated, that's without a doubt. This easement issue has to be resolved. And it's imperative. You can get with your neighbor and get his title report, preliminary report, and pull out the easement and have a licensed surveyor, California licensed surveyor, do an analysis of where that is and whether that does impinge on the construction that's going on. That's going to be very important. Wood siding, I agree with what was said on the wood siding. I don't think we need to go over that. So I think, from my perspective, and I think in just listening to the consensus here, I think that with these improvements and with these changes, this would be approved. But right now, I think there's some refinement that needs to be done, and I think you're well on the way of doing that. So with that in mind, do we have, are you amenable to a continuance? And if so, do you need a month, 2 months? What's your thought?
2 weeks' time.
2 weeks, okay. So let's say toward our second meeting in April, you should be well on your way, because you've got an easement to go over too.
Right.
And that may not be straightforward as you might think.
So staff, when would the next available hearing be for a continuance in this case?
We do have 2 meetings available in April. The second meeting will be April 17th. However, plans will need to be back by April 8th, the latest.
Is that okay? Can you have April 8th
Yeah.
plans back and
Yeah.
April 17th?
Yeah, by April 8th.
And you know, this is not just, you know, please take to heart what was said here. When we're replicating tiles, you've got to come back with an actual exemplar of what you're doing. So there's a lot of work to be done. This is not just a matter of saying, okay, we'll replicate the tile. No, you got to bring something in very much on a board like you did here. So it's got to be a complete package, or else we're back in another continuance, which I don't want to do.
Let me just make sure I understand your request is the replicate the tile, the mosaic tile.
Right.
Part of the problem, the one that we can see, we know what that is.
Right.
The one we don't see it because it's being covered by the paint.
Right.
We wouldn't know until the construction. So then we
You
determine.
can take an exemplar out and have it replicated. There are artisans around who do that.
Right, but my point is that we don't know because it's being painted over right now. We don't know, once we remove the paint, how the condition is of that tile that being covered.
I think as long as we conditioned it, that anything that was found to be in a condition that could not be kept at the house would have to be replicated identical to how it looks today by an
Yeah.
artisan, and that would be the condition.
And that would be fine. Excellent thought, Judy.
Okay.
So essentially what we're talking about is replicating the original in an acceptable form. Okay?
Yeah.
Chair, if I may interrupt, do you want the applicant to do an investigative study now? So that way, when he comes back with revised plans, we know what will be, what he can save and restore, and what will have to be removed.
Ideally, yes, but if we had a condition that was agreed to, that basically stated that you're going to replicate, and you could bring in an exemplar tile that you are going to replicate.
Are we
we
just
have that
talking
in
about
front.
tile? Because amongst all of us, I heard tile, I heard railings, and I heard the,
Right.
the two fountain heads in the front fountain from.
Yeah, there's an extensive.
I'm just.
No, but I think
stuck
to
on
give him clarity
tile.
on what he has
That's
contributed
fine.
to.
Everything has to be replicated and brought back to its original state as best as can be done, considering the condition it's in.
For decorative items.
Yes.
Right. Okay?
Yeah.
So,
I'll make a motion.
all right, great.
Can I make a motion
Can I
to
say something?
continue design review? Oh, go ahead. Ben, did you have a question?
Yeah, I just want to clarify one thing also,
Sure.
and also add to this. When you asked if I was happy with the landscape plan, I was referring to the oak tree location,
Right.
about that. But with this new tree ordinance that just went into effect, February the 8th, I believe it was, the landscaper should, landscape architect should take a look at the replacement of the trees. There is a whole selection of trees that you have to put back. And certain numbers for every tree you remove, you have to put back certain numbers. And that has to be approved by Ron Serban also.
Okay, that's an excellent point. Yeah, all right.
Okay.
So, go ahead with your.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to continue DRC case number 18-90-3325 Monterey Road to the April 17th hearing, at which time plans would be due back to the city on April 8th.
Is that pending an investigative report or?
No, it's just,
No.
yeah. Do we have a second on that?
I'll second that.
Okay, can we have a roll call, please?
Committee Member Joyce Batnich,
Yes.
Committee Member Huang,
Yes.
Committee Member Johnson Brody,
Yes.
Vice Chair Chang,
Yes.
Chair Brody,
Yes.
motion carries.
Okay, thank you very much, and look forward to seeing you at,
Sir, I have one point too. I'm sorry that I forgot to mention it. May I?
well, really, we're closed right now. If it's a point that you want to make, at the end of the hearing.
This is kind of important. We have been living with empty homes for years.
Yeah.
We have been living with homes that have been under construction
Right.
for a number of years immediately around us. Is there any way for this body or some other body of the city to request that once the work is started, that it progresses in a timely manner? That
Okay,
maybe they can prove to you that the funds are available to complete the project? Because we have
It will need to be completed in a timely manner, so once it's started.
somehow, so that you can assure
Sam, did you
that
have
the
comments on
project
that?
is funded.
Staff can follow up with
yeah,
the
this
neighbor
is,
after this.
you would deal with staff on this, building and planning will work with you on this if there's any slowdown, any issues with regard to the construction. So these two fine people from staff would be able to assist you in that.
I'm not trying to be
No, I understand.
limit there. We like to see it done, we like to see it done in a timely manner.
Great. Thank you. All right, we have the minutes. Any comment on the minutes? No, we're good. Okay, we have a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll move to approve the minutes.
Second,
I'll second it.
all in favor?
Aye.
All right, been approved.
Is there anyone here for